So I was thinking, what is my favorite thing to record in my home studio? Well, for me, that's really easy because I'm an acoustic guitar player and electric guitar player. So for me, it's obviously going to be guitar. But between the two, I just love the organic process of recording acoustic guitars. And so I figured, well, why don't I do a video about it? So today's video is literally the top 5 different techniques that I use while recording acoustic guitar. So make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel, and we will dive right in. So this first microphone that we're going to be checking out is actually a large diaphragm condenser, and the reason I thought I'd start with a large diaphragm condenser is because typically, from my experience, just from personal experience and experience of my peers, a lot of home studio owners actually start out as one of their first microphones is a large diaphragm condenser. And this largely has to do with the fact of number of sources that you can kind of use a large diaphragm to great effect on, whether it's vocals or guitars or piano or guitar amps, you name it. There's not a whole lot that a large diaphragm condenser doesn't sound good on. And there's a lot of, really affordable options in that kind of niche as well. So I figured I'd start with this. Now, the biggest thing you want to watch out for when you're recording acoustic guitar specifically with a large diaphragm condenser is you want to stay away from right out in front of the guitar where the sound hole exists. This is where a lot of the air is being pushed out of the instrument. And so you're going to get a really woofy kind of bass end, low frequency, heavy sound if you set the microphone close to the sound hole. So we want to kind of avoid that so we don't have to spend a bunch of time kind of cleaning that up later on in mix down. So right off the bat, it's best to just start with a good microphone placement. So you'll notice right here, I actually have the large diaphragm condenser with the capsule facing towards the 12th fret of my guitar, and it's about 6 inches off the guitar. So we're close miking it here. And the reason I'm doing this is because the large part of the harmonics of the guitar are kind of based around that area. And so you can pick up a lot of those overtones and harmonics in the guitar recording here, while it also minimizes a lot of the lower end frequencies that we just don't need in the acoustic guitar. So we're kind of passing over that and kind of displacing this where it's going to pick up a lot of the transients of the guitar and some of the mids as well. So we're going to start here, and I'm going to play a little bit of strumming here and picking so you can see what it sounds like. So this next microphone is actually a small diaphragm microphone, and these are often used on a lot of sources like guitar and drum overheads, a lot of stringed instruments, because they are so detailed. They pick up a lot of detail, and they're a lot less colored than a large diaphragm condenser. They are a lot less high in output, so even between the Neumann that I just was using, the large diaphragm condenser, this is a lot less output than that microphone was. So I do have to kind of adjust the levels to get them to gain match in here. So you'll kind of notice that a little bit. But these are awesome on acoustic guitars in here. Again, just like with the Neumann, I'm trying to avoid all the kind of woofiness that exists over here. So I have this right off my 12th fret with the capsule facing towards the 12th. And I'm going a little bit closer, maybe about a fist kind of distance between the capsule and the 12th fret. Because they're a little bit less output, I'm just bringing it a little bit closer to the source just because of that. So I'm going to play a little bit of again, strumming and some picking in here, and you can see what it sounds like. So this next technique that I like to do is actually when I want a great deal of compression on the guitar and I want to crush it a little bit. And so I've kind of placed the large diaphragm microphone about a foot out from the guitar, and rather than being straight out over the 12th fret, I'm kind of finding a midway point between the 12th and the 20th fret in here. So it's about a foot out from the guitar right now, and this is automatically going to pick up a lot more of the room, which can be a good or bad thing depending on your room. It's always an interesting thing, and as you compress that, it's going to bring a lot of the room tone out even more. And so it's something that's kind of fun to experiment with a little bit, especially if you're working with maybe a singer-songwriter and you want a little bit of a heavier sound, or if it's in a fairly busy mix and you just want to kind of crush the guitar and kind of clean up the low end in there so it just kind of pops and sits in the mix. So this is a great technique here. I will be adding a little bit of compression going in on the way in on this record, so you can kind of hear what it might sound like in context. So I'm going to do some strumming and some picking for you. So this next technique is actually my favorite technique. This is a kind of my take on a spaced pair. A lot of people will do spaced pairs with either two large diaphragm condensers or two small diaphragm condensers, but I like to mix it up. And so what I'm doing here specifically is I'm putting the small diaphragm condenser kind of right up again, kind of facing towards that 12th fret. And then on the body side of the guitar, I actually have the large diaphragm condenser pointed towards the bridge of the guitar. And it's kind of picking up a lot more of the ambience and kind of the lower section of the instrument, the lower frequencies. So the kind of general rule when you're recording with two microphones in a space pair like this is you want basically whatever the distance between the source and the microphone, you want the distance between the two microphones to be 3 times that. We call that the 3-to-1 rule. And that's just to preserve phase correlation so that we're still in phase. Because what happens when you're using two microphones is, depending on how you have them placed, each microphone is going to be receiving the sound at slightly different times. And so if you aren't following these kind of rules in here, you'll end up with a lot of phase cancellation, which is never a good thing. So I try to always kind of observe this rule. I don't typically, go out and actually get a measuring tape and go through every time. I kind of just move the microphones around, kind of observing this rule, kind of doing it by hand, and move it till it sounds good. And I'm kind of checking, before I record, what they sound like in headphones. So that's just something to keep in mind here. But the advantage that I like here is just the width and dimension that you get out of these two microphones. You can pan them hard left, hard right, and they just sound golden, really wide. So give it a listen here, and you'll see what it sounds like. So this is actually the final technique that we're going to look at today, and this is actually kind of an interesting technique. What you're going to basically be doing, our goal with this one is actually to emulate how the guitar player is actually hearing the instrument. A lot of times, we're recording typically right out in front of the guitar, and we're kind of listening. What we're hearing when we're recording is kind of like what the audience or listener sitting out in front of the guitar player would be hearing. But this is kind of an interesting take where we're basically putting a large diaphragm condenser over the shoulder, kind of at ear level, facing down towards the guitar, to kind of capture the sound coming out of the instrument that we're hearing out of our ear, kind of the same level that our ear is at. And then the small diaphragm is to kind of pick up the just the regular part that the listener out in front of the guitar would be hearing as well. So we're kind of using this to kind of blend both the sound that the guitar player is hearing and that the listener is hearing. So kind of a cool technique here. Again, just move your microphones around until they are phase coherent. And then typically, I'll kind of play around with panning in mixdown to see what I kind of like. Oftentimes, I will end up either panning them out hard left, right, or I'll even just follow, the two microphones perfectly like panned up, whichever direction I put them at the same amount here. So let's say the microphones were both panned over on the left here. That's where they both would go. And I would use the large diaphragm to kind of blend in with what the listener is hearing, the listener mic. So we're going to take a quick look at what this sounds like here. Thanks so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you found something useful and that you can use in your home studio. Please leave a comment below, maybe telling what your favorite technique was. Or if you have any ideas on other techniques that I should try or that I should be using. I'd love to hear your feedback as always. Also, if you're interested in working on a project with me, any type of project. I love to songwrite and co-write with other songwriters, so I'd love to work on your project. If you're interested, I also am a mixing engineer as well, so I love bringing out the best in the tracks that you already have. Lastly, I do offer a ton of session guitar work. And guitar is my passion. I'm playing guitar, hours a day, and I, have a full teaching student load as well. So be sure to hit up my website. That's joshuakrell.com and get in touch. And lastly, if you're interested in this music channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for future videos. I will see you in the next video.